Chapter 341. What did you feel towards me in the beginning? As Lin Che spoke, she saw Gu Jingze's eyes turn sullen once again. His stare penetrated her even more and she quickly said, "You're handsome." "Of course, it's you, Gu Jingze. Gu Jingze is handsome too, but he's not my type." Gu Jingze's face immediately returned to normal, but he still looked unhappily at her. "Think carefully before you answer next time." Yes. You're the more beautiful and handsome man in the world." She could only say this because he was ill. Gu Jingze said, "All right. You're really terrible at lying." Lin Che looked speechlessly at Gu Jingze. "How did I never realize how prideful you are?" Gu Jingze retorted, "I also never realized how stupid you were before." "Idiot," Lin Che said, "if I knew you were such a difficult person to please, I definitely wouldn't have married you." Gu Jingze looked at Lin Che. "If I knew you were so mentally challenged, I wouldn't have married you either." "Hey, so you thought that I was very clever at the beginning?" Lin Che asked curiously. "Of course, if you're able to drug me at the hotel, I think that your intelligence shouldn't be too low." "Hey, that is child's play. I only bribed my way into the hotel and drugged the pure water." "But you never thought that the person drugged would be me?" "Yes. How could I possibly think that? I also didn't think that Gu Jingze was some special person. I thought that he was just a celebrity." If she knew that the Gu family was not to be trifled with, she wouldn't have dared to drug him, even if she had 10 times the courage back then. However, she was angry at that time. She didn't expect to land herself in another world where she was exposed to so many things for the first time. This was unimaginable back then. "Very well. You didn't know who exactly your opponent was and dared to drug them. Your intelligence is really limited. Perhaps the people I come into contact with are all very calculative, so I must have been mistaken at the start." "Yes, so are you especially regretful marrying me? You thought that I was somebody special, but I'm actually not." Lin Che thought that she was just such a normal and simple person. He must be regretting it. "No, I don't regret it. You're very special." He thought that she was not at all average since so many people liked her. He always thought that she must have had some superpower that made her so attractive. And he gradually didn't dislike her that much. Instead, he couldn't reject anything to do with her. He touched her forehead, "Especially silly. Bastard, you only know how to sweet-talk me. Do you dare to say that you didn't hate me at the beginning? You were especially annoyed with me at first. That's why you always looked constipated every time you saw me." "Yes, I did find you annoying," Gu Jingze said. Lin Che's face fell and then warmed up after a long time. She thought, forget it. It wasn't the first day he didn't know how to talk. Wishing he could sweet talk was as good as wishing he could act like Gu Jingze. Gu Jingze continued, "But eventually, I got used to it. I was annoyed the moment I saw you and wondered why I married you. After all, I only stayed at the hotel for one night and you barged in sneakily. You even drugged me. You have no idea how many dangerous situations I've been in this life, but that was the only time I found it especially ridiculous. So every time I look at you, I think about how I actually took that kind of drug and even did those things with you uncontrollably. It made me angry." Gu Jingze thought about that day's events. The moment he opened the door to the bedroom, he saw a rowdy woman inside. He thought that he was dreaming. He never came across such a thing in his life, but in the next moment, there were already changes in his body. He couldn't control himself and wanted to pin this woman who looked like a lost deer onto the bed. Lin Che innocently said, "I didn't expect it either. I was still preparing a camera inside when I heard you come in. I thought it was Gu Jingze and I was frightened out of my wits. In the end, the man who came in was you and you immediately lunged at me. I should be the victim here. I was even shouting for help but nobody heard me." She could still clearly recall when he entered. Before she could take a good look at his face, his tall body was already coming at her. But now that she thought about it, his scent wasn't distasteful and his body wasn't detestable. He was just rough. He even ignored her protests and went in. She was completely stunned at that time. She couldn't react for a long time and couldn't believe what was happening. Gu Jingze said, "What's the use in shouting for help? My men only listen to my orders. Nobody will come in without pressing the doorbell. Also, that hotel's soundproofing was extremely strong and my room was extra soundproofed. Even if you screamed your lungs out, nobody would have heard you. Humph, you were so rough, so forceful, and you didn't have any skills. What did you say? Gu Jingze's eyes shifted to Lin Che. Lin Che saw Gu Jingze's face immediately darken as if he was going to swallow her up. She quickly distanced herself from him. What's wrong? Wasn't that the case? It was your first time and you were like a pile driver. You only knew how to go in and out and didn't know anything else. Am I not telling the truth? Gu Jingze's face immediately sank further. Lin Che, come over here and talk, Gu Jingze gestured at her. Lin Che asked, what are you going to do? No way I'm going there. Be good, come here when I tell you to. Gu Jingze's eyes darkened. When his dark eyes stared at her, they were filled with temptation. However, Lin Che was not going to fall for it. No, come here if you have the guts, I'm not going to you. Gu Jingze's eyes flashed, whether I have the guts or not, don't tell me you don't know. Lin Che's face flushed red. She looked at him undefeated and said, you used to. Now, I'm not so certain since you're injured. Who knows if you won't be just a useless pretty face in the future. Gu Jingze's face darkened again. He looked at Lin Che and ordered, come here. I'm not going over. I would be asking for death. There's no way I'm going. Lin Che stuck out her tongue at him from a distance. Gu Jingze thought that he must have spoiled her too much recently. Was she really not afraid of him now? She actually bickered with him like this. If you come here now, I can still pardon you. Otherwise, don't blame me. No, you're a sick cat now anyway, so you can't come down the bed. I won't fall for your tricks. Ah, I think there's someone outside. I'll go check it out. He, you can't catch me. Lin Che laughed as she hurriedly ran out. Gu Jingze sat still and looked at the condition of his body. Indeed, he couldn't get off the bed. He could only give up and speechlessly watch Lin Che leave. This brat, if it was anyone else, they wouldn't have dared to be so disrespectful to him and talk to him this way. Only she dared to climb on top of his head and bicker with him now. If anyone saw her do that to him, they would have already been scared out of their wits. Chapter 342, Lu Chusha suddenly had confidence out of nowhere. Watching Lin Che run out, the people outside were extremely surprised. They stared at Lin Che as if she was a strange creature. This lass was too brazen. Gu Jingze held formalities in high regard and she dared to run over to disturb Gu Jingze. They were really breaking out in cold sweat for her. However, Gu Jingze seemed unaffected and they shifted their eyes away, feeling even more surprised. It looked like Gu Jingze was rather good to his secret wife. They actually didn't have a bad impression of Lin Che. She looked very boisterous now, but she would immediately stop talking and stand behind humbly when the occasion called for it. She was not arrogant and didn't hinder the business. She carried the title of Mrs. Gu all this while, but she didn't have a tinge of stubbornness. This comforted people a lot. Lin Che was just talking when she saw a person say that someone was looking for Gu Jingze. Lin Che answered and saw that Lu Chusha was already walking in with a few people. Lu Chusha was here. Seeing Lin Che in here, Lu Chusha's eyes deepened. Gu Jingze actually allowed her to enter such an important place. She really wondered what trick this foul brat used to make Gu Jingze trust her that much. Lin Che looked at Lu Chusha and noticed a man behind her. He was tall, handsome, and looked very proper. Perhaps because she had seen too much of Gu Jingze, Lin Che didn't feel anything when she saw such a handsome man. She only looked at him with a little confusion. She heard Lu Chusha plainly say to the man, "Brother, you can go in first. I saw someone I know." Lin Che then realized that the man was Lu Baikan. So he was Gu Jingyan's husband. Lu Baikan looked at Lin Che and said politely, "You must be sister-in-law." "Hello, I am Lu Baikan." "Hello, I'm Lin Che. You can just call me Lin Che." "Okay, I'm here to see Jingze. You two can have a chat. I'll go ahead and find him first." "Oh, alright." Lin Che looked at Lu Baikan and was not surprised that Gu Jingyan would like him. He looked very handsome, he was tall, and he had an excellent disposition. But his sister was. Lu Chusha watched her brother go in before asking Lin Che, "Why are you here?" Lin Che replied, "Why can't I be here? As Gu Jingze's wife, there shouldn't be a problem if I'm here." "Huh, I just feel that a person of your status has never seen anything. Are you sure that you won't end up spoiling things here?" Lin Che naturally began to feel uncomfortable. To be insulted like that, she only felt that this person was extremely annoying. It was not because she had some latch on Gu Jingze, but Lin Che really hated her because she was truly annoying and prejudiced. Lin Che asked, "Miss Lu, what's the point of bringing me down all the time?" Lu Chusha replied, "I'm really curious as to why Gu Jingze would marry a person like you. You're not compatible with Gu Jingze and you know it yourself. But you're still staying and hindering Gu Jingze. That's why I want to bring you down." Seeing her speak so directly, Lin Che really didn't think that such a person could exist on Earth. "Since Gu Jingze married me, it goes to show that I have my merits. Of course, you wouldn't know about it." "Ha, I know you have merits. That face of yours is passable, but he'll get sick of it sooner or later. So, Lin Che, I advise you to consciously leave Gu Jingze sooner rather than later. Otherwise, when you're personally chased off by me, that won't look nice." Lin Che really did not know where that confidence of hers came from. That woman believed that Gu Jingze would definitely be hers. "Try me," Lin Che said. Lu Chusha scoffed and walked ahead in her heels. She turned her head slightly to look at Lin Che. "You saw what happened today. Why do you think that I can come in here?" This was the benefit of having a powerful background. No average person could come in here, but I'm not an average person. Gu Jingze and I share the same world, so even if Gu Jingze shuts off the entire world, I can still enter his. You have no idea what Gu Jingze and I went through together. I've known him for many years and I understand a lot more than you ever will. That is my advantage, humph." Then, she looked at Lin Che contemptuously and walked in. Lu Chusha knew that this Lin Che was rather difficult to handle. She initially thought that Lin Che played just a small role, but she didn't expect Lin Che to already have curried favor with the Gu family and even make Gu Shan so fond of her. But to Lu Chusha, the biggest problem was still Mo Hiling, who had a similar family background as her. Gu Jingze and Mo Hiling's relationship was too deep, unlike this poverty-stricken small artist in front of her. "Open the door," she stood at the entrance and said to the bouncers. The bouncers heard their conversation just now. Looking at Lu Chusha's proud demeanor, they secretly thought that she was too tyrannical. Furthermore, she was pretty, but it wasn't enough to make them like her. Lin Che normally didn't let them open and close the door after her. She always opened and closed the door by herself. When they helped her, she even thanked them. Although Lu Chusha was C Nation's top socialite, Lin Che was Mrs. Gu. The bouncers stood there and did not budge. They only glanced at Lu Chusha and pretended not to hear her. Lu Chusha was stunned. She looked at both of them. "I asked you to open the door. Didn't you hear me?" Just then, Lin Che spoke from behind. "All right, since there are people here, you guys can go keep watch over there. There's no need to guard this area." The bouncers heard Lin Che, immediately straightened up, and replied, "Yes." After that, they marched ahead. Lu Chusha didn't expect them to treat herself this way. She angrily grabbed one of them and asked, "What's the meaning of this? You guys pretended not to hear what I said just now and now you are leaving just with a word from Lin Che. Are you guys intentionally out to embarrass me?" The bouncer plainly looked ahead and replied coldly, "We only need to listen to Mr. Gu and Madam's instructions. We don't take orders from anyone else." Lu Chusha knew that the Gu family's guards were all like this. They would absolutely not take anyone else's orders no matter who or how powerful that person was. These highly trained people were almost like mechanical soldiers. But now, they indeed embarrassed Lu Chusha this time. She turned around and stared daggers at Lin Che behind, grunted, and pushed the door open to go in. Seeing Lu Chusha this way, the bouncers felt that Lin Che was an even greater person and wished that Gu Jingze would never switch out his wife. They bowed to Lin Che and left. Chapter 343. How shameless to display affection in public. When Lu Chusha entered, she saw Gu Jingze and instantly changed her attitude. She hurried to him and whined, "Jingze, you really scared me. I thought something had happened to you." Gu Jingze took one look at her and then saw Lin Che behind carrying a tray in. It was time to eat, and usually, the two of them ate together by themselves. Today, both ladies were actually here. Gu Jingze asked, "Have you eaten?" Huh. Seeing as he didn't answer her, Lu Chusha looked at him glumly and felt rather angry. However, she quickly smiled gently and said, "I have." "Oh, then we won't stand on ceremony. Take a seat. We'll be done very soon." Gu Jingze waved his hand and gestured for Lin Che to come to him. Lin Che took the tray to him and Gu Jingze frowned. "Why are you carrying the food? Where is the maid?" He looked deeply into her eyes and took over the tray. Lin Che said, "It's all right. I saw that there were people inside, so I didn't call for the maid. Eat now." Gu Jingze held the tray with one hand, but somehow, the tray tilted and everything on it fell to the ground. The white plates shattered on the floor. Lin Che got a shock and quickly said, "Oh no. Everything is broken." She quickly bent down and picked up the broken pieces. Gu Jingze watched her reach out for the broken pieces and he quickly said, "Enough, stop moving." But it was too late. A shard already cut Lin Che's hand as she grabbed it. Ouch! Lin Che winced. Gu Jingze immediately dropped down to the floor. He frowned and pulled her hand to him. "Stop moving. Look at you, you're such a klutz." Without waiting for Lin Che to say anything, Gu Jingze already put her finger into his mouth. "Ah, don't do that, it's dirty," Lin Che exclaimed and tried to withdraw her hand. Gu Jingze's cold eyes flashed. He grabbed her firmly and said, "I said stop moving." The tongue licked the drop of blood on her fingertip. He held her hand, looked closely and said, "Okay, the wound is not deep." As he spoke, he single-handedly carried Lin Che up. Lin Che exclaimed and hugged his neck. She looked at Gu Jingze. "Put me down. I'm all right. Why are you carrying me? Don't move. There are shards everywhere. What are you going to do when you clumsily step on them?" But Gu Jingze didn't say anything else and put her down on the bed. Lin Che still wanted to move, but Gu Jingze looked over coldly and said, "Don't move." Gu Jingze stared at Lin Che and said, "Let the maids do those things next time. Do you hear me?" Lin Che could only say, "If you didn't grab it, it wouldn't have fallen." Gu Jingze shot another look at Lin Che. Only she dared to talk back at him. He gestured for the staff to clean up. Lin Che looked warmly at him. He was fierce to her, but she knew that he did it for her own good. Gu Jingze was used to being fierce to her, but each time, it was for her own good. Lin Che looked gratefully at him. As Gu Jingze stood on the ground with half of his body covered in gauze, Lin Che thought that he looked so handsome. Across them, the Lu siblings watched Gu Jingze and Lin Che in surprise. Lu Chusha didn't expect Gu Jingze to treat Lin Che so well. He who never needed to lift a finger actually helped Lin Che hold things personally. And he wasn't afraid of dirtying himself since he put Lin Che's finger into his mouth and carried her to the bed. Meanwhile, the maids seemed to be already accustomed to such scenes. They quietly cleaned up and systematically tidied the place so quickly that it was spick and span in no time. Lu Chusha could only think of that image when Gu Jingze carried Lin Che. She felt envious and jealous at the same time, engulfing her until it was almost unbearable. Gu Jingze was so suave. Despite his injury, it didn't affect his heroic manner at all. In fact, he was much manlier. He didn't wear any clothes except for a pair of pants. The pants hung low at his waist, making him appear more slender and his pelvic lines more prominent. His long legs were much longer than others. No wonder his figure was so wonderfully proportioned. When he carried Lin Che so manly, it made Lu Chusha wish that she was the person in his arms. It would have certainly felt nice to touch his beautiful skin. But Lin Che was the one he carried. That good-for-nothing Lin Che. Lu Baikan watched the two of them, smiled, and stood up first. He said to them, "It looks like we came at the wrong time. How about this, Jingze? I'll talk to you in detail another time. Then, I won't disturb you and sister-in-law." He looked at Lin Che and smiled, "I won't disturb your meal." Gu Jingze heard this and nodded, not persuading them to stay. Lu Chusha looked at Lin Che in contempt and said to Gu Jingze, "I think this place is actually rather shabby. Why not come to our mountain villa? If you'd like, come over to our mountain villa to recuperate. It's a much better environment than here and we have attendants too. Lu Chusha talked and glanced at Lin Che at the side as if to say that she and Gu Jingze were from the same world. Her family had a mountain villa, maids, and everything else. In comparison to this clumsy lass, she was better by countless miles. Lin Che knew that she was saying all those on purpose for herself to hear, but she didn't shun away. Instead, she sat there and gazed steadily back at Lu Chusha. Gu Jingze's voice was cool. No need. Do you think that the Lu family's attendants are better than the Gu families? Lu Chusha was taken aback and didn't know what to say again. No household's attendants could be as professional, steadfast, silent and loyal as the attendants in the Gu family. Even the attendants of the Lu family wouldn't catch Gu Jingze's eyes. Lu Chusha was filled with anger. He didn't even look at her in the eye as he let her leave. Lu Chusha took one final look at Lin Che. With no other reason to stay, she could only go out. When they got outside, Lu Baikan then asked Lu Chusha, "Are you done? I think your time is up. I've never seen Gu Jingze so protective of a woman before. Not even with Mo Hilling." "No, Gu Jingze is just putting on an act for me. He only wants me to give up," Lu Chusha insisted. "But he is still different towards me. You see, when has he ever been so magnanimous with another woman? And take a look at how many women who have gotten close to him. Still, he lets me get close to him." Lu Chusha spoke and scoffed, "That Lin Che is nothing. She is merely a tool. One day, Gu Jingze will personally throw her out of the Gu family." Chapter 344. The President's affair was exposed. Then, Lu Chusha lifted her high heels and strutted out. In her heart, she thought that Gu Jingze would never fall in love with a person like Lin Che. Because Lin Che simply couldn't match up to herself, how could Gu Jingze's taste be that bad? But she thought that she definitely must have a plan to make Gu Jingze utterly hate Lin Che. Lin Che watched them leave and the attendants brought in another serving of food. She then sat down and said, "Miss Lu seems very close to you." Gu Jingze said, "She's just a kid. Don't bother about her." "But the Lu family seems very capable," Lin Che said again. Gu Jingze said, "What has that got to do with her?" Lin Che said, "I just wonder if I'm a little too useless. My family is terrible, my background is terrible, I'm such a klutz, and I don't know anything. You also said that my intelligence is poor. Gu Jingze's brow furrowed and a cold, murderous look flashed across his eyes. "Did somebody say something to you?" No, I'm just saying because that's what you've been saying about me." Gu Jingze could talk about her, but if anyone dared to speak ill of her. Gu Jingze felt that he would never let this person appear in C Nation again. Gu Jingze calmed down and looked at Lin Che. "When I say that, I'm just comparing you to me. You are indeed useless compared to me." Gu Jingze looked at Lin Che, "But if you're really useless, you wouldn't have accomplished what you have today. You also wouldn't have made my mother, grandfather and entire family like you. All the more, you wouldn't have made the maids at home acknowledge you as Mrs. Gu. Thus, you can't possibly be useless." Lin Che looked at Gu Jingze. "Really? Then do you think I have any merits?" Gu Jingze looked at Lin Che's chest. "You have two outstanding areas." Really? Where? She really didn't know what merits she had. Her eyes met Gu Jingze's but saw that he was staring at her. She froze and followed his gaze. Gu Jingze. Gu Jingze smiled faintly. "Yes. It's rather outstanding." Lin Che looked at him angrily with her hands on her waist. Gu Jingze raised his hand and rubbed her head. "All right, don't think so much. To be fancied by me and become my woman is already merit itself." Lin Che only looked speechlessly at him. "Why does it feel like you're praising yourself?" "My taste has always been pretty good. So relax. You're certainly not useless. That's why I fancied you. While your intelligence is poor, you lack manners and you fail in everything. Of course, those are all in comparison to me. If you compared yourself to an average person, you're definitely better because you are Gu Jingze's woman. This point already makes you better than any other woman in C Nation." Lin Che hesitated slightly. She gazed at Gu Jingze, suddenly feeling a sense of satisfaction slowly filling her. He said that she was his woman. This kind of tyrannical saying always made her feel a ridiculous sense of belonging. Especially when he said it, he looked so sexy. Before they ate finish, Gu Jingming suddenly came to visit. Lin Che immediately hopped out of the bed and left the entire space to the two brothers. She felt that Gu Jingze really suffered. He couldn't even rest for one full day in the ward. Gu Jingming brought guards from the glazed tile palace and a bunch of them noisily stood outside. When Lin Che walked out, she was escorted by Gu Jingze's guards to another room in the sanitarium. The guards took exceptional care of her and it moved her deeply. She thought about Gu Jingze's words and felt that they were so nice to her. This really proved that she wasn't entirely useless. Lu Chusha was the annoying one, no matter how much she had. Meanwhile, inside, Gu Jingming said to Gu Jingze, "News about Yu Minmin and I have been leaked out." Gu Jingze looked at him in astonishment. "What did you say?" Gu Jingming placed the report in front of Gu Jingze. Perhaps they took advantage of the chaotic news that was leaked out. Maybe this mess was also caused by one person. Anyway, the photo of me and that woman, I'm afraid that we can't protect it. Gu Jingze looked at the news and instantly thought that it was so long ago, but it was still here. This also meant that the person behind this must have planned it for a long time. The girl in the picture was blurred, but the man was extremely clear. It was Gu Jingming, standing there naked and not moving. But with that alluring naked body on the bed. It was too obvious. Gu Jingze asked, "Wasn't the report stopped?" "We only managed to stop one, but it still quickly spread." Gu Jingming spoke with solemn eyes. Gu Jingze chuckled and leaned on the bed. "Why not just claim that she's your fiancé?" Jingze. "Okay, I won't joke around. Call your secretary in. We'll discuss how to handle this. It's obvious that someone is trying to drag the Gu family down right now. We cannot let our guard down." At the TV station, Yu Minmin was about to call it a day. Lin Che was busy and stayed behind with the crew, watching them. Song Shuai was humble throughout. She was only puzzled that Lin Che's trip was very coincidental and suspicious. Because of Gu Jingze's matter, Gu Jingyu recently shut himself in and refused to come out. He probably had no time to bother with the crew either, so she didn't see him for a long time. Just when she was done packing up and leaving with Yang Lingxin, she heard a small actor exclaim, "Oh my god! Mr. President's bed picture is out." Yu Minmin paused. Yang Lingxin exclaimed, "No way! How could Mr. President have bed pictures?" Still, Yu Minmin subconsciously went over to see. When her eyes fell on the picture, her entire body was frozen. That was her. There was no way she wouldn't know. Just then, "Miss Yu Minmin," a strict voice boomed over her head. She looked up and saw a few burly men with a man in a suit standing in front of her. These guys looked familiar. "You guys. We need Miss Yu's cooperation concerning a few matters. Please come with us." Yu Minmin didn't expect this matter to be leaked out after so long. That was a one-time accident of all accidents, but it made her inevitably involved in the strange world of politics and interact with people she never thought she would. Perhaps this was all because of Lin Che. Otherwise, she wouldn't have gone to that hotel. But regardless of the reason, she could only follow these people now. Chapter 345. He already decided to make good use of this matter. Yang Lingxin asked suspiciously, "Sister Minmin, this is..." "It's fine, I'm just going for a while. It should be some problem at home." She handed the documents to Yang Lingxin. "These are Lin Che's documents. Take them back with you and return them to me in the office tomorrow." Okay. Yang Lingxin looked at the people in front of her and felt puzzled. These people looked formidable and didn't seem to be from the company. However, she looked at Yu Minmin and dared not to say anything. She could only fearfully watch these people escort Yu Minmin away from the studio. At the presidential palace, glazed tile palace. It was the first time Yu Minmin came to such a place. She always watched the yearly open house on TV when this place was open to the public. But that day didn't have such strict staff. When she entered, the layers closed after her. None of her belongings were with her. Gu Jingming came in and handed over his belongings to the entourage. He looked at Yu Minmin and firmly walked over. His face darkened as he gazed at Yu Minmin. Feeling annoyed, he only took a glance and tossed the papers to her. Yu Minmin was stunned. She looked at Gu Jingming, picked up the papers suspiciously, and her face completely paled. Gu Jingming said, "The only option I can think of now is to publicly declare that it's a private photo of me and my fiancé. I must claim that this is only part of my everyday private life. It has nothing to do with the outside world." Yu Minmin shivered. "The image of me is not clear. It shouldn't be a problem, right? I will not rule out the possibility that they may have clearer pictures of us, so you must comply with all the conditions of the glazed tile palace." "What?" Yu Minmin looked at him in astonishment. "What do you mean?" "It means that from now on, you will be my fiancé." Yu Minmin was entirely stunned. How could she become his fiancé? "But..." "There are no buts. This matter is all because of you and now, you must take responsibility for it. This is the consequence. I asked you to come here not for a discussion, but to inform you that you'll be my fiancé from now on. Although you temporarily won't be exposed, you must still be prepared for when that happens one day. Or if we need to take this to the next level, I'll inform you again." "What?" Yu Minmin looked at Gu Jingming in shock. "You're asking me to pretend to be with you? On what basis?" Gu Jingming stepped closer to Yu Minmin, looked at her face, and said quietly, "Otherwise, I will throw you and your family to rot in cold prison on the basis that you are a suspected spy that can undermine national security. This is an abuse of authority. Whatever floats your boat. You." "Fine. This is because you are Lin Che's agent. That's why I never got rid of you immediately. Otherwise, you wouldn't have the right to be here and talk to me right now." Yu Minmin looked at Gu Jingming and couldn't control her anger. "I think that you haven't gotten rid of me because you're still going to use me. This is my right to stand here." Gu Jingming's eyes narrowed. Those menacing eyes looked murderous. Looking at this daring woman in front of him, his fiery gaze almost seemed to drown her. However, Yu Minmin didn't care at all. She was either going to live or die on this boat. She was going to die sooner or later. But she didn't know if she would be tossed away after being used or when she would be killed because of all these complicated relations. Now, there was only one path for her. Why should she still fear anything? Yu Minmin said, "What other requests do you have? List them all out now and stop beating about the bush. Everything is fake anyway and I can't outplay you, politicians. I can't outplay the mighty Mr. President, so I won't have any tricks up my sleeves. Just be frank with me. Let's not waste time by beating about the bush." Gu Jingming heard this and looked deeply into her eyes. "You better think this way. What do you expect? You are too strong. What else can I think of?" Yu Minmin asked. Gu Jingming stared at her plainly. After some time, he then said, "Good. You better remember your words today. I'm not hiding anything from you. From now on, you are my fiancé and I don't need you to change anything. Just be yourself. I only need you to remember not to try to run away. Otherwise, you will regret every decision you make." "Don't worry, I won't." Gu Jingming indeed didn't need her to do anything else. Anyway, a commoner wife would be beneficial to his image, just as Jing said. There had been speculations about him and his family was urging him to get married. He could only choose her as his fiancé at this time. Their opponent was too discreet and no matter how smart the Gu family was, they would never know what other information was in their opponent's hands. Gu Jingming said, "Come on. I'll send you back." "No need. I can go back myself," she said and turned to walk out. But Gu Jingming caught up to her. "I need to assess your family situation too." Yu Minmin looked up suspiciously. He said, "Let's go." Yu Minmin watched as he strode out and she could only follow him. Sitting in the presidential car, Yu Minmin looked at the guards outside and took a deep breath. The highly respected and adored Mr. President was sitting just inches away from her. She silently sighed, thinking that this was all too surprising. It was so surprising that there was no way for her to figure out what to do. Yu Minmin's family situation was not good. The money she worked and saved so hard for were already squandered by her gambling father. Now, her family had nothing and she had a younger brother who was still in school. Gu Jingming looked at the road outside as they drove along the alley. There were potholes on the surface and the ghetto within the city looked particularly dirty. Gu Jingming looked outside. People from the presidential palace already had their cameras prepared. In tomorrow's papers, there were going to be reports that showed him sending his fiancée home. Yu Minmin naturally didn't know about all this. He looked at the woman beside him. He didn't plan to marry for the time being, but now, he suddenly had a fiancée. Very soon, they reached her house. Yu Minmin said, "Thanks for sending me back." Looking at this dilapidated place, she asked, "So, Mr. President has probably never been to such a shabby place. If you regret having me comply with you, remember to tell me earlier." Gu Jingming's eyes swept across the dirty little alley outside and remained silent. Yu Minmin also didn't say more. She closed the car door, looked back at the president's huge entourage, and walked in. "Sis." Yu Minmin heard her brother's call. She turned around and smiled at the teenage boy approaching her. She looked at her brother and smiled dotingly. "You just ended class." "Yes, sis. The remedial teacher let us off late today." "Right, sis, who were those people?" Her brother looked outside with his tender face and asked. Yu Minmin watched the line of cars slowly moving away. "Oh, it's nothing. They sent me home." "Really? They look very formidable." Yu Minmin laughed and put an arm around her brother's neck. "Come on. Let's go in." Chapter 346. Mr. President actually has a fiancé. In the car, Gu Jingming only looked out from behind. Yu Minmin went into the dilapidated lift with her brother. At the front, the chauffeur asked, "Mr. President, do you want to go back now?" "Yeah, let's go." He turned back, took one long look, and quietly answered. The next day, when Yu Minmin was still at the company, she heard someone in the office say, "Oh my. That's impossible. The president announced that he has a fiancé. Ah, my heart is broken. When did Mr. President find a fiancé? How come I never knew about it? Didn't you see Mr. President's bedroom photo that went viral online?" Mr. President then announced at the glazed tile palace that he indeed has his own private life. He met his fiancée a year ago and recently succeeded in proposing to her. He also hoped that those secretly taking photos of him would leave him alone when it comes to his personal life, especially when it concerns an innocent lady's privacy. He asked the people to be magnanimous as the other party was a normal girl with no special background. Thus, she has her own normal life and he hoped that she wouldn't be disturbed. Netizens immediately condemned the paparazzi. They believed that the president was also human and he was of age. There was nothing wrong with him being with his fiancée. A part of the community also began to focus on the fact that the president actually had a fiancée and even admitted to it. Some people also pinned their speculations on that person, wondering which family's daughter was so lucky since she was a commoner at that. This kind of scenario really made them think of Princess Diana's commoner story. It made them so hopeful. Yu Minmin looked at the news and laughed speechlessly. These people really thought that the Cinderella story was true. But unfortunately, this Cinderella that was her was created by others. She sighed, took her notebook and laptop, and received a call. "Miss Yu, I am Linda. I'm the head secretary of Mr. President. If you have any problems in the future, please call me. If Mr. President needs anything, I will also be informing you." "Oh, thanks for the trouble," she replied. "No need to be courteous, Miss Yu. You're the future headmistress of Glazed Tile Palace. I am the one serving you." Those words made her want to laugh. She was clearly given an impossible challenge. Now, her little life was completely trapped as an ugly duckling amongst Mr. President's glorious achievements. When Gu Jingze was much better, the ban outside had also been lifted. Although they were still searching for the suspect, the media already revealed that the suspect should have left the country. They didn't say that the suspect was bombed and already dead and that the suspect they were searching for was just the planner. Gu Jingze returned home with Lin Che and the maids were all elated. The chance that Gu Jingze survived was unknown before that and they were all anxious. Now that they saw Gu Jingze return, they were relieved. Lin Che was busy going in and out to help Gu Jingze take his belongings and fetch the water. She was used to doing all these over the past few days. Gu Jingze didn't like any attendants to enter his room there, so only Lin Che helped him. Gu Jingze watched her bring some water. He stopped Lin Che and said, "That's enough. You don't have to do anything anymore. Just let them do it. Why are you walking around everywhere?" Lin Che replied, it's all right. I have nothing to do anyway. Okay, sit here now. You're giving me a headache from all that walking. Gu Jingze frowned as he pressed Lin Che down. The maids saw this and also quickly said, Sir, Madam, please take a rest. Let us handle these trivial chores. Another one at the side said, Madam is too hard-working. All this should be left to us maids. Madam and Sir are honorable people and should not be doing these menial tasks. Lin Che asked, what's so honorable? We are all the same. I do it at home too. Madam, you are too kind. The maids looked at Lin Che in amazement. It was really because the maids did not see the two of them for so long that they were already very happy. The maids' expressions were so warm that even Gu Jingze could feel it. When he usually went away, he never saw these maids so excited before. A maid said to Lin Che, it's okay, Madam. This is our job in the first place. If Madam did it, what else are we supposed to do? Exactly. We are already very happy that Madam came back with Sir. When you two weren't around, this place didn't feel like home at all. Now, it feels like home. Haha, don't tell me you miss me. Lin Che chuckled and asked. The maids heard this and all chimed in, of course we missed Madam. When Madam is not around, the house is so cold. Gu Jingze looked at them, smiled, and shook his head. He pulled Lin Che to him and said, all right, let them do their job while you sit here obediently. Lin Che could only watch the maids clean up the place. She leaned there and looked at Gu Jingze who was lying on the bed. Actually, although it was good to stay at the sanitarium, it always somehow felt depressing. Now that they were back home, their moods were much better. Thus, Lin Che also smiled happily as she watched the maids tidy the room speedily. She felt very comfortable at that moment. Most importantly, Gu Jingze held her hand from time to time, touching and caressing her. She looked at Gu Jingze who was reading some documents and felt that his expression looked pleasant. It felt different as if she could look at him forever and still not get enough of him. Gu Jingze looked at the documents and then at the maids. At that moment, he also couldn't imagine how this house would be like without Lin Che. But he was sure of one thing, these maids wouldn't have missed him in the past. Looking at the maids leave, Gu Jingze said, look at you still saying that you're useless. You've captured every person's heart in this house. Lin Che asked speechlessly, how can that be? They usually wouldn't miss me. That's because you're too strict. You always have a stiff face and you're so fierce. Who would miss you? Gu Jingze glared at her and said, that's not it. They are extremely loyal to me, but it's another feeling towards you. What feeling? In any case, you must have performed some trick to win them over. Impossible. I thought that it's because I'm the wife and that's why they are so good to me. Gu Jingze shook his head. He didn't say anything else and only looked deeply at Lin Che. Just then, Lin Che was scrolling through her phone when she came across Gu Jingming's news. Oh my god. When did Big Brother have a fiancé? How come I didn't know about it? Gu Jingze raised a brow and took a look. Oh. Chapter 347. Because someone wanted to tackle the Gu family. Hey, did you know about it? Lin Che looked at Gu Jingze in surprise. Gu Jingze said, I made someone draft this speech. What do you think? Lin Che said, Gu Jingze, you're handling this too. What else do you think I'm handling daily? Okay, of course, I don't understand the work of powerful people like you. I only need to worry about what I'm going to have for tomorrow's breakfast and such. But thinking about how I actually have such a capable man by my side, I still feel very proud. Hee hee. Gu Jingze looked at her infatuated expression, then, you now know that your man is very capable. Yes, you can determine so many people's fates just by raising your hand. Oh my, I feel so mighty just thinking about it. I've always been very capable. It's not like you don't know. He laughed and held her hand tighter. Lin Che froze and immediately understood that the capability she was talking about meant something else. Ah, this guy, his words were so easily suggestive nowadays. Lin Che scrolled through the news and said, I didn't expect such a strict person like Big Brother to visit the hotel with his fiancée. But it makes sense too. Big Brother is also a man. He may appear very strict, but he's actually just another gangster. Gu Jingze chuckled and asked, do you really think that everything written in the papers is true? What do you mean? Lin Che looked up at Gu Jingze with a surprised expression. Gu Jingze said, the news is false. What? Big brother came to discuss it with me yesterday. He accidentally touched a woman last year. In the end, it was a setup and some people have been sending out pictures. They took the chance when I was injured this time. Everyone in the Gu family was busy taking care of my matters, so they moved into action again and released the photo once more. Ah, someone is secretly tackling the Gu family. Yes. Did you think that the Gu family isn't afraid of anyone since we're the most powerful family in C Nation? We don't need to be afraid of anyone in C Nation, but this time, a special envoy from M Nation came to see me but was met with an accident. I'm afraid that the culprit is an old enemy of ours. The Gu family's old enemy is. The Gu family's old enemy is the Lin family. Their eldest son, Lin Yuyong, developed many terrifying strategies to tackle us. His movement and methods are different from ours. He doesn't participate in politics, but he controls the pulse of H Nation. He is ruthless and you saw their ways this time. They are very direct. Thus, we are very worried that they will do something bad to us. We can only use this method to stop their mouths. Lin Che said, so complicated. Of course, that is why you're definitely not suited to play politics with a brain like yours. I thought that you guys were already capable enough in C Nation. Silly girl, so you really didn't know who I was at that time and simply used the drug on me? Gu Jingze asked and looked at her. Lin Che said, of course. If I knew you were such a tyrannical madman, I wouldn't have dared to touch you. In the past, I used to think that Qin Qing's family was already very capable. My father's side was also already very capable. I didn't really read the political news and didn't care about economic news. For tabloids, I also only looked at Gu Jingyu. C Nation has a few powerful families. Now that you know, the Gu family has 100 years of history in C Nation. There's the Lu family who also helped bring down the family in Zhongshan that year after they became famous. And there's also the Wan family who were the diplomatic flowers that year. You should have learned this before in your middle school textbooks. However, it was not clearly stated how powerful the Wan family was. In comparison, that Qin Qing's family is nothing, he added the last sentence scornfully at the mention of Qin Qing. Lin Che glared at him and secretly thought, this petty guy. He was still talking about Qin Qing now. So, that person who is tackling you guys now, will you guys be in danger? It's no problem, it's not that dangerous. We just need to be a little more cautious than usual. Gu Jing's already used to it. He also didn't want to disclose too much to Lin Che so that it didn't frighten her. But looking at Lin Che, he thought that no matter how dangerous it was and whatever danger he was in, he didn't want Lin Che to be implicated. He couldn't imagine what would happen if Lin Che somehow ended up in the dangerous position he was in. He thought that it would be better to be more cautious over Lin Che's safety in the future. Lin Che looked at the news and asked, who exactly is that person? Big brother even said that she had no background. Is she a commoner? Well, you will know in the future. It's not certain whether this will be exposed in the future or not. Don't think too much about it for now. Lin Che agreed. She should just care about herself. She definitely would not be able to participate in their complicated matters. Gu Jingze was almost completely healed. It was just in time for the Lu family's invitation. They invited the Gu family to the Lu family's horse ranch. Although Gu Jingze had wounds on his body, he still agreed. After all, this was the first gathering of the two families after the wedding. It wouldn't be nice to not go. Lin Che was also dragged along by Gu Jingze to select her riding suit. Lin Che never rode a horse. Looking at the riding suit now, she felt that it was really interesting. These clothes look so pretty, she remarked. They feel exquisite. You pick one and then I'll pick one, Gu Jingze said. You'll only be able to tell if it looks good when you put it on. What are you staring at? I'm just curious because I've never seen all this before. Hey, I think this looks pretty nice. She picked a green outfit. Looking at another riding suit of the same color, it was black with green edges. It matched with the outfit she picked. Lin Che immediately suggested, Gu Jingze, why don't you wear this? Gu Jingze took one look and said disdainfully, "No, I want the gray one." Lin Che said, "Don't be like this. I'll wear green and you should wear the green one too. It'll be like wearing couple clothes." "No, I don't like such bright colors." "Don't be like this, Gu Jingze. I never wore couple clothes with anyone before and I want to try it just this once. I think it'll definitely look great." Never wore couple clothes with anyone before. It made sense. Besides carrying a torch for that gigolo, she never dated anyone else. Thinking about this, his expression seemed to relax a little. Lin Che tugged at his arm. Hubby, you see. Others already wore this kind of thing before. I'm so old and have never done that. I'm losing out. Wear it with me. Please wear it with me. Gu Jingze couldn't stand that puppy-like expression of Lin Che the most. She looked pitifully at him like a little puppy that was just abandoned at the side of the road. Her eyes and mouth exuded desire and she kept calling him, hubby. Finally, Gu Jingze could only sigh as he looked at that green outfit with a darkened face. Chapter 348. Gu Jingze and Lin Che wore couple clothes. If this set of clothing has a green hat, don't get your hopes up on making me wear it. Haha, how is that possible? Who would dare make the dignified Gu Jingze wear a green hat? Lin Che giggled and joked. Looking at Gu Jingze, she thought coolly, indeed, calling him hubby was a very effective method. This feeling made Lin Che very happy too, especially when she was looking at the riding suit. She thought that he would definitely look very handsome in it. Lin Che and Gu Jingze went to change in their respective changing rooms. As soon as she came out, Gu Jingze was also done changing. Although it was just at the edges, he didn't like this green color that much and thought that it wasn't a good fit with his character. However, Lin Che was completely different. When he raised his eyes, he saw a lady in dark green who gave off a heroic aura. This Lin Che she could be bewitching when she wanted to or elegant when she chose to. She was indeed worthy of being an actress. When Lin Che went out with Gu Jingze, the helpers were all stunned. They couldn't help but exclaim as they looked at the outfits of these two. "Madam, you look amazing and so well matched with Sir." Lin Che smiled shyly while looking at Gu Jingze. She spoke with pride, "See, I told you that you would look handsome wearing this." Gu Jingze stared at her, "Don't look a gift horse in the mouth." However, when he looked at the two outstanding people in the mirror, he agreed that they both indeed looked really good. Gu Jingze's lips curled up and looked at the woman beside him gently before getting into the car. The Liu family's ranch was extremely big. The people who came were not just from the Liu family, there were also trusted friends of the Gu and Liu family there. Gu Jingyan already told Liu Baikan before they set off, "Please be on your best behavior later on. No matter how much distaste you have for me, do not show it in front of everyone. Otherwise, it will be detrimental to all of us." Liu Baikan replied, "Don't worry. Just don't display yourself as a resentful woman later." Gu Jingyan changed into her riding suit and stood there wearing her hat. This was not the first time Liu Baikan saw her in a riding suit. However, at that moment, Liu Baikan couldn't help but take a second look. When he saw Gu Jingyan turn back, he glared at her before heading for the exit on his own. Gu Jingyan was the campus belle of her time and would naturally not look ugly in anything. As she aged, this beauty could only be enhanced with a certain kind of delicateness. He thought to himself, Gu Jingyan had an abundance of suitors then and he would be the one fending off these suitors for her. Little did he expect that one day, he would end up so estranged with her. Before Gu Jingze and Lin Che arrived, the Liu and Gu family members were already picking their horses inside. Liu Chusha was dressed in a yellow riding suit. With the hair flowing down from underneath her safety helmet, she looked even more slender. This attracted the attention of many as she strode past on her horse. Liu Chusha was extremely familiar with this kind of attention. After all, she was the top socialite with plenty of suitors outside. Although those who have arrived were quite close to the Liu and Gu family, they were not as strong and powerful as the Liu and Gu family. Therefore, looking at the daughters from these two families, they were all utterly envious. Their bodies seemed to glow and it made them look even more attractive. As Liu Chusha got down from her horse, Mu Wanqing laughed and said, "Chusha, you look really good riding a horse." Lu Chusha smiled as she replied, Auntie, you're too generous. I'm only like this because I practice very often. Mu Wanqing said, please, you look great. See how those fellas are falling heads over heels for you. Oh, Chusha, you aren't getting any younger. Have you not found yourself a boyfriend? Auntie, I already have someone I like, so I don't wish to look for a boyfriend, Lu Chusha replied politely. As Mu Wanqing was unaware of her intentions, she smiled and said, it's good that you have someone in your heart. Auntie was just asking to see if there was anyone you might like in the group of young men over there. Lu Chusha looked over at the group of guys. Even though all of them looked rather dignified to her, Lu Chusha had no interest in any of them. Her type of man must be powerful and formidable like Gu Jingze, not these like Tom, Dick, or Harry. However, she was still extremely polite and harmonious with everyone. Looking at how everyone would flatter her just to see a smile, she got up her horse gracefully and left for the exit. She thought to herself, Gu Jingze must be arriving soon. Lin Che exited the car first while Gu Jingze left to make a phone call. She stood alone outside the range, looking at the scenery. This place was also a famous tourist site in B City. Due to the wonderful spring weather, a lot of tourists could be seen roaming the place. Before long, people started noticing Lin Che. They looked over to her direction and shouted, hey, isn't that Lin Che? Oh yes, she does look like Lin Che. Everyone looked over in the direction and started calling out Lin Che's name. Oh gosh, is Lin Che here to ride a horse? Lin Che, you are so beautiful. Lin Che, I love watching your TV drama. When are you acting in another show? Once security realized what was happening, they blocked the crowd that was heading over. Originally, only one person managed to recognize her. However, the moment he shouted, the surrounding crowd began to notice too. Everyone was extremely excited to be able to meet the hottest celebrity on the rise. Lin Che hurriedly told the security as she saw the crowd cram in. Please be careful, this crowd is innocent, don't be too forceful, everyone, please be safe first. The horde got even more excited seeing how considerate Lin Che was. Lin Che bashfully apologized, I'm sorry. Can we all just take a group photo and not shove each other anymore? Lin Che took out her selfie stick, and with the help of the security, took a selfie with her fans standing behind. She said, I'm putting this up on Weibo. You will be able to download it yourselves. Thank you, everyone, I'll go first. As the mob saw how kind and polite Lin Che was, they started to disperse and started saying to Lin Che, hurry in. Don't be late. Lin Che, please eat more. You're too slim. Lin Che, you look so beautiful in that suit. Lin Che instantly got overwhelmed by the number of compliments. She waved to the masses and hurriedly walked in. Immediately, she saw that Gu Jingze was already inside. When did he get in here? It was probably because she was too busy outside just now, so he went in immediately. Seeing that Lin Che had arrived, Gu Jingze laughed as he looked outside, they even chased you all the way here. It looks like you're a little famous now. But of course, your wife is now a superstar. Lin Che took out her Weibo to show Gu Jingze. Look here, the fan count is already 5 million. Yes, yes, yes. You are the best. Gu Jingze looked at the screen. She already edited the photo and posted it. Below, she wrote, the friends who took the pictures just now can download it here. Please take note of your safety when you're having fun. I may be really pretty, but don't be running after me. Gu Jingze was speechless. This Lin Che was indeed quirky. Chapter 349. The runaway horse was heading towards Lin Che. Inside, Lu Chusha immediately saw Gu Jingze walking in with Lin Che. She was originally pulling the reins happily, but she didn't expect to see Gu Jingze and Lin Che wearing the same colored outfit. One suit was dark green with black edges and the other was black with green edges. The two of them actually wore a couple outfit here. Lu Chusha's eyes were fixated on Lin Che's face. Seeing Lin Che looking so bright in that matching outfit made her insides boil. She merely displayed a face of acceptance. She just wanted to see how Lin Che would still be able to attract Gu Jingze if her face was ruined. Lin Che walked in with Gu Jingze. As she was concerned about Gu Jingze's injuries, she looked up and asked, how are your wounds? Gu Jingze nodded subtly, it's no problem as long as I don't move too vigorously. But just then, Gu Jingze's eyes flashed. Inside, a horse was freed of the reins. It whinnied and started dashing towards them. Ah, a runaway horse. The horse escaped. Quick, look. Oh no, Gu Jingze is over there. Oh my god. Before Lin Che could react, she saw that horse running straight at them. Lin Che exclaimed, ah, what is happening? Seeing the horse frantically head in her direction, it was so fast that she didn't have time to think. She only knew that the horse was going to collide into her. Lin Che stood rooted to the ground and couldn't move her legs at all. At this moment, she felt a strong arm grab hold of her waist. Lin Che looked up to see Gu Jingze with one arm around her waist and the other quickly taking out a gun. He pointed it at the horse in front of them and fired 2 shots. The sound rang in her ears and made them numb while the bullets landed on both of the horse's front legs. The horse screamed and its legs gave way. It collapsed on the ground as it continued moving forward due to the inertia. Lin Che covered her mouth in shock. The man beside her circled her with one hand, pulled open the door, and made a turn as he carried Lin Che and jumped to the side. His movements were so suave and neat. When he landed, everyone was in awe. Meanwhile, the horse finally stopped moving. It was bleeding profusely and breathing hard. Lin Che's heart palpitated. That split second just now really felt like she was in a dream. But everything was so real. Gu Jingze quickly pulled Lin Che away. Are you okay? Lin Che shook her head but her face was still stunned. She suddenly recalled something and quickly tugged Gu Jingze, your arm. It's fine, Gu Jingze's plainly swept across his own shoulder. His face was stiff and as cold as a winter night. Everyone around quickly surrounded them. They were all shocked after watching this entire scene from a distance. If that horse touched Gu Jingze just now, then... Thankfully, it was fine now. Everyone looked at Gu Jingze. In their minds, they recalled his suave demeanor. He had just been injured, but his movements were still so nimble, especially with those 2 gunshots. They were quick and accurate. The running horse was suddenly defeated. And that move was extremely charming. Everyone looked enviously at the woman he carried. Lu Chusha also hurried over from behind. When the horse was about to collide with Lin Che, Lu Chusha thought that Lin Che would not be able to stop it. Little did she expect Gu Jingze to stop it instead. Especially when he even carried Lin Che so charmingly. That move was really... She thought about how nice it would feel if he carried her that way. It was too bad that the girl in his strong arms was Lin Che. Now, everybody was still in awe at that scene. She heard the females talk enviously, who is that? She is so lucky to be carried by Gu Jingze like that. Yes, I want to be carried that way too. That feeling must have been awesome. Didn't you see how pretty that girl is? Nobody beside Gu Jingze can be rivaled. Would you be able to? Yes, that girl looks gorgeous in that riding suit. Lu Chusha couldn't listen any longer. She quickly ran in. Oh my god, what happened? Jingze, are you hurt? Lu Chusha quickly ran over and grabbed Gu Jingze's arm to look. Gu Jingze coolly blocked her hand and said plainly, I'm fine. After that, he quickly turned to the other side, let me see. Are you okay? Gu Jingze didn't even look at Lu Chusha and immediately turned his attention to Lin Che. Everybody was very surprised. However, in C Nation, the only person who was able to completely ignore Lu Chusha would have to be Gu Jingze alone. Gu Jingze wasn't afraid of anything or anyone. He didn't need to give face to Lu Chusha at all either. He pushed Lu Chusha aside and her face stiffened. She could only look at Lin Che and ask, Lin Che, are you okay? Lin Che couldn't ignore her. She quickly looked at her and said, I'm okay. Then, she held Gu Jingze and said, go take a look at your arm. Which hand did you use to carry me just now? I hope the wound wasn't aggravated. Lin Che never thought that Gu Jingze would carry a gun with him at all times. But then again, it was normal since he was in danger. However, this was her first time seeing a real gun and she saw it up close. She was still a little stunned. Gu Jingze said that it was fine and went in with her. Lu Chusha quickly caught up with them. She looked at the horse on the ground. Someone sighed, "Oh my, this horse is such a waste. A chestnut-colored Hanoverian horse especially bred. It must be very expensive." Someone behind replied, "Which is more expensive, Gu Jingze or the horse? Furthermore, do you think Gu Jingze cares about the horse?" However, Lu Chusha only quietly walked away as she looked back at the horse's injuries. These injuries were caused by her in an instant. But too bad this good horse actually couldn't kill Lin Che here. It didn't even hurt a hair on her. In the end, Lin Che was even carried by Gu Jingze so sweetly that it made so many people envious. Lu Chusha was so mad that her chest started to hurt. Thankfully, nothing happened to Gu Jingze. Mu Wanqing brought some people with her and specially came over to look. Seeing the couple's outfits, she smiled from ear to ear and asked, "Since when did Jingze wear such a fresh color?" Gu Jingze only turned back to glare at Lin Che. Mu Wanqing remarked, "Not bad. Jingze can listen to someone else's words now." Lin Che said, "I begged him to do it. He refused to and I pleaded with him for so long." The people at the side heard this and thought, could Gu Jingze's mind be changed by begging him? Everybody knew Gu Jingze's character. After everybody made small talk, Lu Chusha came over to Lin Che again and said politely, "Lin Che looks great in that outfit." Lin Che smiled and said, "Thanks for your compliment. Is this your first time at the ranch?" she asked. Lin Che replied, "Yeah, it's my first time." "Then let me introduce you to some horses for riding. The horses over there are not bad. They are very gentle and especially easy to ride." Her eyes flashed as she gazed at Lin Che. Her lips curled into a smile, completely hiding her coldness. Chapter 350. She fell into the water and screamed for help. Lin Che did not want to sit on a horse recommended by her, but Lu Chusha passionately tugged at Lin Che's hand. Lin Che didn't know how to reject her at all. As Lu Chusha dragged Lin Che out, the people behind looked enviously at Lin Che. "Miss Chusha is an excellent rider. Nothing can go wrong with Miss Chusha's recommendation." This way, it seemed as if Lin Che wasn't giving face to Lu Chusha by rejecting her in front of so many people. However, Lin Che really didn't want to go with her. At this moment, Gu Jingze suddenly came from behind and stopped Lin Che. He pulled Lin Che to stand behind him as he looked at Lu Chusha and said, "No need. I'll pick a horse for her." Lu Chusha's eyes flashed and she looked at Gu Jingze. "What's the matter? Do you not trust me?" "That's right," Gu Jingze said nonchalantly. He turned and pulled Lin Che away with him. Everybody looked in shock at Gu Jingze's tyranny. He didn't give face to Lu Chusha at all. But Lu Chusha was at a complete loss too. She stood behind, unable to utter a single word, and she could only watch as Gu Jingze take Lin Che away. Lu Baikan watched and said to Lu Chusha, "Well, he's just like that. What can you do about it?" The people behind who heard this began to talk among themselves. That was indeed Gu Jingze, he was always so straightforward. However, this must have been terribly embarrassing for Lu Chusha. A few people couldn't help but comfort her. "Miss Chusha, forget about it. Let's go over there and choose the horses ourselves." Gu Jingze was really overbearing as he disregarded the Lu family. However, the Lu family seemed unable to take any action on him. Lu Chusha was rejected directly. She could only maintain her silence as she watched him walk away. She really wanted to get angry too, but she knew that it would not solve any problems. It was undeniable that nothing could be done to Gu Jingze. Lin Che let out a sigh of relief as she was taken away by Gu Jingze. She looked at the horse in front of her and said to Gu Jingze, "I don't know how to ride a horse. What should I do?" "It's fine, I'll be with you. There is a horse that I've raised here, we can ride on it together. He is stable enough to carry both of us." "Wow, really? That's great. Hee, I was still afraid that I'd be a disgrace because I don't know how to ride a horse." "Knowing how silly you are, how could I let you disgrace yourself?" He gently tapped her nose and pulled her towards the stable. The people behind saw Gu Jingze and Lin Che ride a horse together, strolling and strutting about. On one hand, they were really envious of watching those two riding a horse together. On the other hand, they thought that Gu Jingze was just too indifferent. But who would have guessed that Gu Jingze's personality was like this? Trying to talk to him was as hard as trying to ascend to the heavens. Everyone was accustomed to his attitude and was therefore even more jealous of Lin Che, who was on the horse with him. Looking at them laughing without a worry for the world, everyone was curious as to what abilities this woman had that allowed her to talk to Gu Jingze so happily with no effort at all. Lu Chusha watched from behind and started to feel extremely uncomfortable in her heart. She stopped riding immediately and went straight inside. Lin Che and Gu Jingze only rode for a while. Gu Jingze was worried that riding the horse would be detrimental to Lin Che's body, so he wanted to let her down to rest. There is no need. I want to ride for a bit longer. No, you only just got stitches. This would not be good, he said. Lin Che stumbled and replied, please. That was so long ago. No means no. That area is specially made for me, you have to protect it for me, he whispered softly in her ears. Get lost, she stabbed him with her elbow. The two of them laughed and got off the horse together, oblivious to the onlooking crowd around them. They were all shocked at the fact that a lady in this world dared to jab Gu Jingze. But Gu Jingze was not angry. Instead, he seemed to enjoy the jab, and this made them even more alarmed. When Lu Baikan came along and mentioned that Gu Jingyan was inside preparing afternoon tea, they went in. Lin Che was feeling bored, so she decided to go out for a walk. After locking eyes with Gu Jingze for a minute, she ran out smiling. Outside, the horse ranch's air was extremely refreshing. One could see the mountain range from far away. It was very rejuvenating to get some sunlight after staying in for so long. At this moment, she saw Lu Chusha reprimanding someone inside. You were only given one simple task, but yet you're so stupid. Even the horse was so disobedient. It couldn't even knock down one person. It was Lu Chusha. Lin Che walked a little closer and saw her criticizing a maid. The maid hurriedly replied, Miss, I tried, but Mr. Gu was too close to her. I couldn't avoid him. Then, you should have gone ahead and hit them. What were you afraid of? I was afraid of how the Lu family was going to answer if we hit Mr. Gu. You would not have been able to hit Gu Jingze. Who do you think Gu Jingze is? Would he be so easily knocked over by someone else? He would have dodged it for sure. Now, look what you've done. We were so close, so very close to trampling that little slut. Lin Che's body instantly tightened up. Were they talking about the horse just now? Just then, she accidentally stepped on some horse grains and a crunch sounded from under her foot. Lu Chusha turned around and saw Lin Che. Flustered, Lin Che turned around and started walking away, towards the outside. Lu Chusha's eyes flashed. She turned around and said to the maid, get rid of the horse and make sure that there are no traces left behind. Yes, miss. Thereafter, Lu Chusha brandished the whip in her hands and walked over. Lin Che, what are you doing? I'm taking a walk. She pretended to have not overheard their conversation just now to prevent Lu Chusha from acting disadvantageously towards her. Oh, taking a walk. Did you happen to hear anything just now? Sorry, what are you talking about? She was indeed an actress and was skilled at acting. Lu Chusha had her suspicions. Did Lin Che really just walk by and heard nothing? However, she would not believe Lin Che based entirely on her word. No matter what you heard, I'll see if you have the guts to tell Gu Jingze about this. Lin Che, let me tell you this. You better understand this clearly. Right now, the Gu family obviously has an enemy that is attacking Gu Jingze in the dark. No matter how powerful the Gu family is, it would still be much more advantageous with the Lu family assisting them. Regardless of what you've heard, do you think that Gu Jingze would dare do anything to me just because a mere person like you? Lin Che looked at Lu Chusha. I don't understand what you are talking about. But I've been out for far too long. I should get ready to head back. Looking at Lin Che leave, Lu Chusha followed behind closely. Lin Che did not look back and ran ahead as if she didn't know what was happening. Lu Chusha caught up immediately and started tugging Lin Che's arm. Lin Che would most definitely not allow others to simply touch her. She turned around and started struggling with Lu Chusha. You little slut, how dare you hit me? How dare you retaliate? Who do you think you are? You were the one who started it first. Why shouldn't I retaliate? Lu Chusha saw a man-made lake in the distance and started to manifest malicious thoughts in her heart. She might as well just throw this woman into the lake and drown her. Gu Jingze only liked her for her face anyway. There were pretty ladies everywhere. He wouldn't dare to offend the Lu family over a woman. In for a penny, in for a pound. Lu Chusha immediately dragged Lin Che towards that direction. How could Lin Che not tell that she was planning to drag her into the water? However, she had underestimated Lin Che. Lin Che was not a vegetarian nor a princess. She was a tough girl who had bumped and knocked around while growing up. Therefore, at this moment beside the lake, Lin Che resisted Lu Chusha with all her might. Despite using all her strength, Lu Chusha was unable to toss her in. Just then, she felt a push from Lin Che. Only then did she manage to react and realize that Lin Che was pretending to be weak for this opportunity. The next moment, Lu Chusha fell directly into the lake. Ah, help, help, Lu Chusha shouted.